Hi, I'm Dave Champion here to talk with you again about the principles of liberty. In light of the recent murder of U.S. military personnel by Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz, there has been a lot of talk about arming military personnel here at home. I'm here to express that while no one should be killed for the lack of ability to defend him or herself, there is a bit more to it in this case. A lot of Americans these days have what I call military worship. In other words, for those who have this worship thing going on, everyone in the military is super special and wonderful. I find that kind of nutty because I was in the military and some of the people I worked with were assholes. My point being, we should not idolize the military. But once we move away from idolization and return to the simple and proper respect for the lives of all Americans, including military personnel, we're still left with the question whether to arm military personnel here at home. Or perhaps a better question is how to arm them here at home. The Founding Fathers expressed deep concern and reservation about an armed military here at home. James Madison, often referred to as the father of the Constitution, said, "A standing military force with an overgrown executive, which we have today, will not long be safe companions to liberty." And we have to remember that in the minds of the founders, the militias of the states were at odds with a standing army. Tench Coxe wrote, "The militia, who are in fact an effective part of the people at large, will render many troops quite unnecessary. They will form a powerful check upon the regular troops." And Jefferson wrote, "The strongest reason to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government." When we talk about the physical implementation of tyranny in this country, what is the tool most often mentioned? Yeah, martial law, which would be imposed, of course, by the military. So perhaps as we're looking for a proper answer to keeping military personnel safe here in America, opening the armories and handing military personnel battle gear is not the best solution. Who are these military personnel we wish to keep safe? Are they all combat vets? No, not even close. Some estimates are in today's modern U.S. military, there are 10 non-combatant support personnel for each actual warrior. You know, the guy on the ground pressing the trigger. Obviously, this means the vast majority of the military are not warriors. They have jobs in which they support the small percentage who are. Now, I'm not taking anything away from their service, but knowing they are not trained or experienced warriors, we want them handling military weapons and shooting up the neighborhood if they perceive a threat. Perhaps there's a better option. One commentator, attempting to sound knowledgeable, stated that it is a bad idea for the average service member to possess a firearm on duty because they are not trained to neutralize an active shooter. But here's the thing, when you are the target of a gunman, you are not in an active shooter situation. You're in a gunfight. Responding law enforcement will certainly consider it an active shooter occurrence, but for the person being shot at, it's simply a gunfight. All the training necessary to stop an active shooter presumes that the responder is not the shooter's initial target and is not pinned down hoping to survive. Now that we have ascertained being shot at means the victim is in a gunfight, are most military service members trained and qualified to fight it out on the streets of your community with a bad guy or perhaps multiple bad guys? The answer is clearly no. Do we want untrained military personnel banging away with M4 rifles in front of your kid's nursery school? I think to ask the question is to answer it. So let's take a moment and recap. While we want military personnel to be able to defend themselves, the following statements are facts. The vast majority of the military are support personnel, not warriors. When you are being shot at and you are armed, you are in a gunfight, and you're going to want to do it to him before he does it to you. The vast majority of military personnel have no training that would prepare them to respond effectively in a gunfight, most especially with military rifles. I think you would agree that having the military open its armories to military personnel for their personal defense is not a sound solution. So what is the solution? Military personnel, both on and off base, deserve the same rights of self-defense while on duty, the same fighting chance to survive if attacked that you and I enjoy, unless you live in a communist country like California. But I digress. So here is what the Pentagon should do. It should forthwith acknowledge that being on duty does not divest personnel of the right to fight back against a deadly attack when stationed within this country. We all understand that the rules in war are different, but when their duty assignment is here, in this country, they should be able to exercise the same rights of self-defense as every other citizen, whether they're on or off duty. The military does things in their own way. That's exemplified by the old adage, there's the right way, the wrong way, and the army way. So here's what should happen. In acknowledgement that service members assigned here at home have a right to fight back effectively against a deadly attack, the Pentagon should immediately implement a private firearms open carrying program. Here's how that program might work. The military issues a list of all approved semi-automatic handguns. This list should include every pistol that is generally in use as a duty weapon for patrol officers in law enforcement. An easy way to think of it might be everything from a Glock to a 1911. At the same time, the Pentagon issues a list of 2 or 3 holsters and belts that are approved to be worn with the common daily duty uniform. These would obviously have to be retention holsters such as a Serpa or a number of the Safariland products that are available. And none of that old military flap over the top crap. Let's stick to the 21st century. Since this will be a voluntary program for service members, just as this choice is voluntary for you and I, the firearm, holster, and belt will be acquired by the service member at his or her own expense. Remember, we're making sure they have the same rights of defense as me and you, and we pay for our gear. The private firearms open carry program must include proficiency training in the use of a handgun, as well as the education and laws concerning use of deadly force. The training should include exercises such as shoot, don't shoot scenarios, because they may be using those firearms in and around a civilian population. In other words, around you and me. And since they're here, not overseas, the legal standards for shooting must be the same as yours and mine. And since the military has no frame of reference for domestic firearms training, the training should be conducted by the private sector, just as it is for civilians seeking a concealed carry permit. When the service member has completed the training with a passing score, the military will issue a private firearms open carry card authorizing the carry of the firearm. This system avoids the various concerns about military personnel carrying military weapons on U.S. soil and provides a reasonable level of training. And remember, this training is particularly important for combat veterans, as the rules of engagement are completely different when in our communities than when they were overseas. In conclusion, this program, as I've detailed it, allows military personnel stationed in this country to exercise the same right of self-defense as you and I. How can we, in good conscience, offer them less? Thank you so much for being with me, talking about liberty. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.